Since life began 3.5 billion years ago, species have appeared, evolved, and vanished in step with the ebb and flow of environmental conditions. To unveil the beauty and fragility of nature, the oceanographic schooner Sedna IV has set out on a mission, 1,000 days for the planet. Leading the expedition is Jean Lemire.
We set sail for the Galapagos Islands, true icons of the amazing biodiversity of our planet. Here, nature's spectacle has fascinated people for generations. Conservation is fundamental on the Galapagos, and the protection measures implemented here can help establish more balanced relations between humans and the other species with whom we share the globe.
Located more than 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador, these remote islands are among the most famous in the vast Pacific Ocean. But for centuries, the archipelago was known only to a few sailors who kept its existence secret. Back in the day, the islands were a larder for pirates. The local wildlife made easy pickings. They had no fear because there were no natural predators. Passing sailors introduced a number of animals, and these have multiplied. Goats, rats, and other invasive species still threaten the unique flora and fauna of these remote islands. But a new threat is looming, more insidious than tourism or even the introduction of exotic invasive species: climate change. The island's extraordinary richness is due in large part to the interplay of the great ocean currents that help regulate the climate of our planet. In this region, the Humboldt Current flows north from the Antarctic, skirting the coasts of Chile and Peru. This deep water stream, 7 or 8 degrees colder than the surrounding ocean at these latitudes, comes to the surface bringing nutrients that stimulate the growth of plant and animal plankton on which many species of fish feed. This abundance of food is a boon for many animals, like the Galapagos penguin, the most northerly species of penguin on the planet. The geographic location of the Galapagos Islands isn't an ideal habitat for penguins, but they've been able to adapt to the tropical climate thanks to the cold ocean currents that bathe the archipelago. To escape the heat, Galapagos penguins spend most of their time in the water and only return to land at sundown. But an increasingly frequent climatic anomaly is threatening the survival of these penguins endemic to the Galapagos: El Nino. Normally, the tropical trade winds blow the warm surface waters out to sea, creating a vacuum filled by the upwelling of these cold, nutrient-rich waters from the depths. In El Nino years, the trade winds weaken. The masses of warmer water that accumulate in the western part of the South Pacific travel east, blocking the upwelling of the cold ocean currents all along the coast. The coastal waters heat up even more and cannot support nutrients. The great schools of fish, such as anchovies and sardines, migrate further out to sea, leaving species that depend on them for food to go hungry. Two major El Nino events in 1982 and 1997 caused a famine among the penguins of the Galapagos. In 1982, El Nino wiped out 77% of the population. Only 463 penguins remained on the Galapagos. 15 years later, in 1997, another extreme El Nino struck hard. That year, 66% of the already diminished population starved to death from lack of food within reach of the archipelago. Today, Galapagos penguin numbers have stabilized at around 2,000 individuals. However, the high mortality rate associated with El Nino means that this weather event is a major and ongoing threat to the survival of this vulnerable species. Scientists in Galapagos Islands National Park, who monitor these climate phenomena, have already noted important changes within different ecosystems.
En esta época del año, las iguanas marinas empiezan a hacer su territorio, ¿no?
This is the time of year when marine iguanas start to establish their territory.
Está agarrando su territorio. Normalmente
And these guys are doing that right now.
donde pueden tener varias hembras, si puedes ver. Y en esta época del año normalmente
They lay out the boundary of an area within which they can control a certain number of females.
Desde los últimos 4 o 5 años, personalmente he visto
Mating season begins around the 24th, 25th, or 26th of December.
estos son como un reloj.
But for the last 4 or 5 years, they've started mating later.
Y empiezan a reproducirse.
They've always been as regular as clockwork.
Como por el mes de enero, los primeros días de enero. Y luego,
Last season, mating didn't start until the first few days of January.
También se demoró 1 o 2 semanas más. Entonces como que se fue extendiendo más el tema del tiempo, ¿no?
With mating happening later, the eggs don't start to hatch until 1 or 2 weeks later than usual. So the whole reproductive process is shifted later in the year.
Creo mucho que ver con el tema del cambio climático, con el tema del
I think climate change is a major factor in the delay in the reproductive cycle.
En Galápagos también se siente.
We're definitely feeling the effects of climate change here in the Galapagos.
La temperatura del mar se toma desde
We've been keeping track of ocean temperatures going back 70 years.
de unos 60 años que en la actualidad para el
Now
tema
that climate
del
disruptions are a big
cambio
concern,
climático,
our records are proving very useful in identifying temperature spikes during El Nino
¿cuándo han
events.
sido los picos más altos, no? Por ejemplo, cuando hay en la época del Niño. Ok, gracias. Lo importante de estos datos es que
This data is vital over the long term. In 20 or 30 years, we'll be able to determine whether or not climate change has had an impact, something that we simply couldn't do with short-term data.
En corto tiempo, ¿no? Este animal que está aquí
This animal here is a type of sea crab that originated far away from the Galapagos archipelago. They traveled on a warm current during an El Nino event. We found lots of them here in 1997 and 1998. We had never seen them before. Their arrival allows us to deduce that ecosystems are affected by changes to the climate. And this is proof that species change, ecosystems change, but also that the habitat where the animals live also undergoes profound changes.
El Nino is unpredictable. The climatic anomaly appears every 2 to 7 years. But many scientists think that the frequency and severity of El Nino events could increase, even double, given the current climatic changes. This could prove fatal to several species endemic to the Galapagos, including sea lions, who depend on the nutritional bounty of the cold Antarctic current. Scientists have noted much higher mortality rates in El Nino years. During the last extreme event, numbers dropped by half.
We've observed that during El Nino events, the seals and sea lions have to go further out to sea to find food like anchovies or sardines. Nursing mothers have to leave their pups alone on shore for longer periods of time. The babies go without food for long stretches and eventually weaken and die. So it's the younger animals that are most seriously affected by these changes to the ecosystem.
At least 90% of the pups will die on the beaches of the Galapagos during extreme El Nino events. And it can take up to 10 years for the population to recover. If, as a majority of scientists think, climate change does increase the severity of El Nino as well as its frequency, the future for these animals, already listed as endangered, is more uncertain than ever. Climate disruptions have no borders and can have dire consequences spread over time and great distances. At the subantarctic Bird Island in the southern Atlantic Ocean, scientists of the British Antarctic Survey noted major die-offs among young fur seals. And these events repeated over time. Years of research have shown that El Nino also takes a toll on wildlife in the Atlantic Ocean, but 2.5 years after the event begins in the Pacific. The band of warm water created by El Nino spreads down the coast of South America, rounds Cape Horn, and flows into the Atlantic, dramatically reducing marine productivity, forcing the fur seals of Bird Island to travel much further in search of food. It took 2.5 years for the warm waters to reach this island in the South Atlantic. But the result is the same. The seal pups starve. The beaches of Bird Island become cemeteries in turn, a testament to the deadly reach of El Nino. In the Galapagos, despite the most stringent conservation practices in the world, many species are under threat. The culprit? The climate crisis, which knows no borders and sneers at conservation measures. A rise in ocean temperature could also have irreparable consequences for the survival of these unique creatures. They have become true symbols of conservation. Marine iguanas, too, are affected by warming seas. Iguanas eat sea algae, which become indigestible as a result of a buildup of a toxin that grows in warm, humid weather. When there's nothing but poor quality algae to eat, and not even much of that, the iguanas are in grave danger. As well, erosion and floods destroy their nests, and the warmer air affects their ability to control their internal body temperature. In one of the most recent extreme El Nino events, almost 90% of marine iguanas died. Torrential rains that accompany El Nino can affect the giant Galapagos tortoise. Nests get flooded, and landslides trap some giant tortoises in ravines. Estimates are that over 250,000 giant tortoises once lived on different islands before the Galapagos were discovered in the 16th century. Caught and kept alive on sailing ship as a source of fresh meat, their numbers plummeted. The introduction of invasive animals like goats and rats also contributed to the decline of giant tortoises throughout the archipelago. In 1974, there were only 3,000 individuals left. But major conservation and captive breeding programs have allowed some subspecies to recover. Today, there are around 20,000 individual animals all told.
This is a male tortoise from Santa Cruz. We're 25 kilometers from the coast. That's why there are around 5,000 of this subspecies left. It's so far inland that the whalers and hunters never bothered coming to get them. These animals are an integral part of our ecosystem. The plants on the Galapagos have evolved in concert with this link of the chain. If it weren't for these tortoises, the vegetation would be completely different. We know that some of these plants even have to pass through the tortoise's digestive system to germinate. The evolution of the island is so intertwined with the tortoises that it's hard to imagine what the islands would look like if there were no tortoises.
Efforts to conserve the last giant Galapagos tortoises have saved some subspecies from extinction. But it was 1 minute to midnight when the reintroduction team arrived on the islands.
I started working with the tortoises when the park was created. At that time, we knew very little about the tortoises. How well was the population doing? Were they in good shape individually and as a species? Where did they come from? Where were they concentrated? We knew nothing about them.
Fausto Llerena is known around the world because of his special relationship with one famous tortoise, Lonesome George. George was the last living male of the Pinta Island subspecies. A bevy of genetically compatible females were introduced to the old bachelor, but in vain. People around the world were enthralled by this amazing story of survival. Today, Fausto Llerena and his team focus on protecting young tortoises for eventual reintroduction on the different islands of the archipelago.
The tortoises live here for 2 years before being released into the wild. They're still very vulnerable during that first year. The biggest danger is rats. Rats don't attack the eggs, just the baby tortoises. But the pigs eat tortoise eggs. Rats can actually eat a small tortoise like this. We've reintegrated 1,800 tortoises from our incubators on Hispaniola Island. At that time, only 15 adult tortoises were left. We brought them here to mate. We had to do that because they weren't reproducing in the wild. The few who survived were dispersed all over the island. It was almost impossible for males and females to find each other in all that territory. Now we are finding nests of young adult tortoises. There are around 3,000 today. The species has made a good recovery.
Conservation measures, captive breeding programs, and the giant tortoise's amazing longevity, up to 200 years, have enabled some subspecies to escape extinction. But other subspecies remain in danger, especially with the potential degradation of their habitats caused by climate change. We left the Galapagos feeling uncertain about the future of this paradise of biodiversity. Climate change will affect not only animals and plants over the next century. Scientists foresee that all the islands in the Pacific will face temperature increases on land and sea. Beyond the disasters feared by the predicted rise in sea level, ocean warming could affect our ability to feed the planet. To understand one of the little-known consequences of warming, we set sail for French Polynesia. Spread over 165 million square kilometers, 1/3 of the surface of the Earth, the Pacific Ocean supplies almost 60% of all the fish eaten on the planet. This extraordinary abundance is due in large part to its coral reefs, which support a wealth of diverse life forms. But over the last 30 years, scientists have noted a dramatic rise in coral die-off and an overall degradation of coral ecosystems. All over the world, coral reefs are threatened by the warming of the oceans, by their increasing acidity, and by the ever-growing pressure of humans on these fragile habitats. On the island of Moorea, scientists are working to understand the evolution of coral reefs.
In a way, it's a shame that coral reefs are coastal. Coral needs light to grow, so they have to be in shallow water, which automatically puts them close to human activity. The biggest threats are overfishing, excess sediment, drag nets, and hard objects that bump or crash into the coral reef. All those things have a negative impact.
Coral reefs form ecosystems that provide shelter and food to millions of life forms, from bacteria to algae, and from fish to the largest marine predators. Reefs are comparable to tropical forests on land because of the amazing variety of species that depend on them. Coral reefs are fundamental to life in the oceans. Degradation of corals will inevitably impact how much fish the oceans can produce. We estimate that more than 85% of fish stocks are overexploited or exploited to the maximum, and the pressure to feed humankind can only increase. Yet, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, 7 of the 10 most important varieties of fish are on the brink of complete disappearance. Globally, 1 fish species in 3 is threatened with extinction.
We've been recording ocean temperatures on Moorea for over 25 years and have noted what may seem like a slight increase of 1/4 degree Celsius. This long-term study indicates a trend, and if we're talking 1/4 degree every 25 years, that's 1 whole degree in a century. We're starting from average temperatures of 28 to 29 degrees, and 1 degree more takes us up to 30 degrees, just about the upper limit of tolerance for a coral reef. That's when bleaching starts to occur, and any additional stress could tip it over the edge. Each stress isn't disastrous in and of itself, but it's the accumulation of stressors that does the damage.
Even a small increase in temperature is highly stressful to corals. Corals react by expelling zooxanthellae, single-cell algae that live symbiotically with the coral. Without these essential algae in their tissues, the coral turn white and will eventually die of starvation. Episodes of massive coral bleaching have been observed 7 times since the middle of the 1980s on the Moorea Reef. Coral reefs are also vulnerable to attack by the crown-of-thorns starfish, or Ocanthaster. This voracious coral-eating predator has caused the percentage of living coral on the north coast of Moorea to plummet by 96%. Another blow fell in 2010, when Cyclone Oli's 7-meter-high waves heavily damaged the physical structure of the outer slopes of the reef, leaving the coral in a critical state. But the coral ecosystems of Moorea seem resilient. Doctoral candidate Caroline Dubé is studying the Moorea Reef.
On the dive, we saw a lunar landscape, indicating that the reef has been badly damaged in a series of disturbances over the last decade. We can't say for sure that the reef is recovering, but some pioneer species are starting to recolonize the substrate. So that's a good sign that things are starting to get back to normal after all the upheaval. And as we continue to observe the reef over the next few years, we should gather more evidence of the reef's chances to make a full recovery from the damage. Today we saw herbivores, carnivores, and large predators like sharks. That shows that the food chain is intact, despite the fact that the coral isn't in good shape. It proves that the ecosystem is stable and that there's a chance that it will recover over the next few years.
While the number and variety of life forms in and around the degraded coral reef has diminished considerably, there is still a wide range of species in the food chain. The arrival of large predators may be a hopeful sign for the future of this recovering ecosystem.
So he's a juvenile? How old?
He's just under a year old. He's about 60 centimeters long. Now we've got him, and we'll try to be quick, get everything done within 1 to 3 minutes. Let's go. First, a picture. That's one. Can you turn him over? What we've been doing for the past 2 years is collecting data on juveniles, subadults, and adults. And by recapturing individual animals, we can see how fast they grow. And he's a bit more, 3.6.
And the young sharks will stay here for 3 or 4 years?
That's right. They live here and eat, get bigger and stronger. Once they become subadults, when they're around a meter long, they'll start to travel more out into the lagoon and even to the other side of the reef. There, he's ready to go.
Research is vital if we want to improve our understanding of the complex universe of reefs.
Good morning.
American scientists from the University of California are studying the recovering corals near Moorea.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Welcome on board.
They're taking advantage of Setanophores' presence here to expand their exploration into harder-to-reach areas in order to compare the different rates of coral recovery.
Coral reefs are really in a very dire situation. Large amounts of coral have been lost in the last 50 years, and that loss of coral arguably began 300 years ago when European explorers first got to tropical locations. But those losses have really intensified in the last 50 years, and maybe in the 60s and 70s there are many parts of the world that had half of the seafloor covered by live coral, and now it's barely 1/10 of that. It really is very serious.
Scientists are investigating the way new coral tries to repopulate these places. What varieties are resilient, and what are the chances that someday we'll see a viable ecosystem established despite the predicted climatic stress?
So our main objective is this coral survey, and really the tool is the camera framer. So we're looking at the whole landscape, but we're taking very detailed pictures of just a 1/2 meter by a 1/2 meter. We're repeating that many times, and we'll do that at a series of depths, and from that we can then put together a detailed picture of the community structure of the corals.
These are the coin of the realm for our trade. These are photographs of the seafloor, and we have similar photographs that go back now 9 years for Moorea. And we use these photographs to measure how much of the floor of the reef is covered by live coral and how much has died.
How was it?
Oh, really good. You know, it's a really interesting place. It's, I think it's been not as disturbed, or maybe it's been longer since the disturbance than over on Moorea. So we saw more corals, a little bit older corals, so you can see a lot of coral competition. Down deep, it was kind of a lot of rubble, but also a lot of juvenile corals growing in. So it's a sign that there's recruitment of new corals coming here.
This little colony down here, this is live stony coral. This is a coral that probably, it's either unhealthy or it has died recently. And all this gray stuff around here, this is reef rock colonized by algae. So only about 5% of that table is live coral, and the rest is algae and reef rock. So here is a coral colony that was eaten by crown of thorns probably within 48 hours, and here is another one. And just for the contrast, this is what they should look like when they're healthy, just a beautiful layer of tissue, and that disappears, and we have this whiteness.
Even if the result of that is white, it's very different from the bleaching problem.
Absolutely. It's a common symptom of two very different conditions. One is where the tissue is removed and you're seeing the white bones sticking up into the water column. The second one is where the corals typically are stressed physiologically, usually because the seawater is very, very warm. It causes them to lose their symbiotic algae that they feed with. Once those algae have gone, the tissue is a very thin, transparent layer for a short period of time. And it's white. It looks just like this. But the difference is, for that short period of time, they remain alive. However, without the algae, they can't feed off sunlight. So they then slowly starve. And if the water stays hot, they starve and they starve. And usually within about 2 weeks, then the tissue will die. And then we're back to this condition where whiteness is a sign of the bare bones in the water column.
If we look at the condition of coral around the world, a good 20% of the world's coral is permanently destroyed. These numbers are approximate. Then we have 50% of coral that is critically endangered, and the remaining 30% is in a relatively natural state and not under any particular negative stress for the moment.
Some scientists believe that over 60% of corals could die by the year 2060. Yet fish are the primary source of protein for over 1 billion humans.
The main problem is overfishing. And that's happening because coral reefs are located in economically disadvantaged areas where countries are poor and overpopulated. There's a population explosion in Southeast Asia, throughout the Pacific, as well as in Africa, which is increasing the already tremendous need for protein. And there's a big food warehouse on the doorstep, the lagoon. So people keep on harvesting the way they did in the old days. But whereas there used to be 2,000 fishermen, now there are 20,000. So sooner or later, the system will not be able to produce enough to meet demand. With regard to current climate changes, we know that some corals will be unable to adapt to a rise in temperature or acidity. But there are a great many varieties of coral, and some that are not dominant today could well become dominant in the future. The king will be deposed, and other species of coral will become the main builders of the ecosystem. What we don't know is what that ecosystem will be like. To say there will no longer be any coral ecosystem is going too far, in my opinion. Coral reefs have existed since the dawn of time, so it's a bit much to suggest that they'll disappear. But that they will change, that the balance of the reef system will be modified, of that much I'm sure.
Predictions on climate change include an increase in ocean temperatures. So it's crucial to understand how coral reefs will react in these new circumstances. What types of coral will best survive climate change? And how will higher levels of acidity of the oceans affect the planet's coral? Trying to paint a picture of the future is a major challenge for scientists.
This is where we've been working long hours for 6 weeks now. My graduate students and I investigating ocean acidification and climate change on corals and algae.
So what do we have here?
We have a set of tanks. They hold about 150 liters, and some of these tanks are basically showing us what the future might look like. We're trying to create a world that will happen in about 100 years in these tanks with high carbon dioxide levels. And then we're trying to grow corals in those conditions for 6 weeks, 4 weeks to 6 weeks to see how they respond to those conditions. We've been working on that now for about 2 years, and we have a pretty good idea how much the growth rates will be reduced.
The outlook isn't promising. In very conservative simulations of the kind of warmer, more acidic ocean conditions predicted for the future, there's a marked decrease in coral growth and productivity. For fish and other organisms that depend on corals, it's not good news. Climate change, more frequent extreme climatic events like El Nino, pollution, the feared increase in natural disasters, and the degradation of coral reefs around the world are interconnected factors that threaten global food supplies.
Did you catch that today? Yes.
Will communities that depend on fish for survival be able to adapt to the expected drop in the productivity of our oceans? Urgent change is essential if we hope to reduce the pressure on our marine resources. Estimates are that more than 85% of fish stocks are currently being overfished or exploited to the limit. In other words, we're now harvesting more fish than the ocean can provide. If the trend continues, commercial fish stocks are likely to collapse by 2050.
The increase in the human population living by the sea is worrisome. As things stand today, coral reefs simply cannot produce enough to meet the protein requirements of an ever-growing number of people, so overfishing is inevitable. At some point, we're going to have to introduce measures to help the natural systems along if we want them to produce enough. We'll have to supplement them with fish farming, impose certain regulations, and introduce stringent management methods. But even if, as an example, we can get people to stop harvesting the top fish in the food chain and switch to species that are lower down, in the long run, we'll still be removing fish and weakening the system no matter what. So in my opinion, we need to find other types of management for better conservation.
On our round-the-world expedition, we've collected clear evidence of major changes in all marine ecosystems on the planet. Climate change risks reducing the ocean's productivity, but we will put more and more pressure on our oceans to feed ourselves. There will be fewer fish for the growing numbers of people who depend on them. In the long run, it's a losing proposition for the fish or for us, humans.
Back when pirates stopped at the Galapagos to catch giant tortoises, the idea of depleting resources never crossed anyone's mind. Why would it? At the time, there were only a few 100 million people on the planet. But in 35 years, we'll be up to 9.7 billion, and probably 11 billion by the end of the century. The pressure on global resources will continue to grow, crippling the planet's ecosystems and endangering all those who live in them. There's one species we won't have to worry about anymore. The Pinta Island tortoise is extinct. Lonesome George, the last living male of his subspecies, has died, wiping out millions of years of evolution in one stroke. More species are going extinct than ever before, as a direct result of our unsustainable exploitation of the planet's resources. But all that could change. The fate of the planet rests in the hands of one species only, ours. It took billions of years for the Earth to carve the oceans into the pattern we know today. Hundreds of millions of years of evolution and adaptation have resulted in the creation of countless species that interact to form the largest ecosystem on the planet. Deep in the ocean blue, every species has a role, its own specific function, in the delicate balance among all species. From time immemorial, mankind has fished for survival. The never-ending challenge is how to share the sea's resources with other species that depend on them. Increasingly sophisticated commercial fishing practices using advanced technologies have, in the last 50 years, dramatically improved marine harvesting. We keep going farther and deeper and catching more and more fish. But we seem to have reached the limit. The ocean's ability to meet human nutritional needs is being exhausted, a result of decades of overfishing and abuse. Scientists consider that if nothing is done rapidly to correct the situation, we will see the collapse of commercial fishing within the next few decades. Yet over 1 billion people depend directly on the sea for survival. The future of many societies may well hinge on whatever conservation measures we are prepared to introduce over the next years. As part of its mission, 1,000 Days for the Planet, the oceanographic schooner Setna 4 set sail for Indonesia, a country of more than 17,000 islands, where many villages depend on fishing for their food and livelihood. Chief of Mission, Jean Lemire.
We're heading to Bali, an exotic island surrounded by coral reefs, known for its remarkable marine biodiversity. Located in the heart of what we call the Coral Triangle, the islands of Indonesia harbor 76% of all species of coral. These reefs provide shelter and food to 37% of all the coral-dwelling fish on Earth.
This amazing variety of species has led to a thriving commerce in aquarium fish. It's a lucrative business valued at around $1 billion annually, all categories combined. Of the 40 countries that export tropical fish, Indonesia and the Philippines supply at least 85% of ocean fish to the world's aquariums. The market for tropical fish skyrocketed after the animated film Finding Nemo hit the screen in 2003. An estimated 30 million fish and marine creatures are harvested every year on the planet's coral reefs. There are no regulations about which species can be caught. The strong demand for aquarium fish has led to the widespread use of a destructive fishing technique, cyanide fishing. A solution of sodium cyanide stuns the fish, making them much easier to catch. This technique rapidly degrades the coral reefs. An estimated 1 square meter of coral is destroyed for every fish caught. Cyanide blocks photosynthesis in the algae that live symbiotically with the corals, depriving them of their main source of food. Cyanide, even in minute quantities, kills the polyps, leading to the death and the bleaching of the corals. The practice began in the Philippines in the 1960s and spread rapidly. It's hard to calculate exactly how much cyanide is being used. Scientists estimate that over 1 million kilograms of sodium cyanide is spread on coral reefs every year. Cyanide fishing is against the law in a number of countries, but enforcement is haphazard at best.
If you are fishermen, you cannot use all kind of techniques because there are regulations. But if you're out in the sea, and Indonesia is so vast, nobody watching you. So in practice, they do what they like with the techniques, yes.
The deadly mixture for corals is obtained by simply dissolving sodium cyanide crystals in seawater. A fisherman has agreed to talk to us anonymously.
What is the effect of cyanide?
Cyanide stuns the fish. It makes them a little bit dizzy, so they're easier to catch. When we release the cyanide, the coral reacts by spurting out a liquid. 2 days later, the coral has turned black all over, like it had been burned.
Why do you use this on coral reef?
Because with this method, all the fish crowd together, and all we have to do is gather them up. Back in 2000, I made $10 a day for 4 hours work. Today, I make quite a bit more. I'd say I make around $30.
Is there any risk for your health?
Yes. If you breathe in the cyanide, it's very bad for your heart and lungs.
International pressure has forced local authorities to take some action. But these few police interventions are the exception, and often end without official sanction. Illegal fishermen have to receive 3 official warnings before being arrested. Arrests are rare and do nothing to discourage the practice.
Did you get caught before?
I got caught once. I was convicted of illegal fishing. I went to jail for 6 months, and I had to pay a fine of $50.
Indonesian fishermen also use this technique to catch fish intended for human consumption. Increasingly popular in Asia, the fish will be transported live to restaurants around the world, displayed in tanks, and served at premium prices. Fish that survive will metabolize part of the poison, but an estimated 80% of fish caught this way die from cyanide poisoning.
The fish that stay alive, that are caught with cyanide, and they actually make it to the consumer markets, there's not so much known about the effect of eating that. But many fish that are caught with cyanide die, and those fish are still sold, and they end up at the local market. So you can imagine that the local communities who eat that fish, because it's dead and they don't waste it, they actually probably have a lot of risk of taking a lot of cyanide that's still in the fish. That's what it died from. And they build that up in their body, but it can't be good for people.
Another illegal fishing technique is devastating coral reefs. Blast fishing. This technique is fatal. It kills the fish and utterly destroys the structure of the reef.
People use bombs to throw at big schools of fish, and then they can just scoop up the fish out of the ocean. It's a very easy way to catch a lot of fish in not so much time. You just explode a small bottle. They usually use, soft drink bottles. And if it's very close to the coral reef, you have a crater of about 1 meter. It's devastating. This fish, when it gets to the market, is damaged. So this goes to the domestic market. This is eaten locally.
This explosive is made from fertilizer, according to a recipe that has been handed down through generations.
Is there lots of people around here who use the blast fishing?
Not as many as before, but some of us still do.
Why do you use blast fishing?
It's easier to feed my family. This way I can harvest a lot of fish in a short amount of time.
But now you understand all the damages that it will make to the coral reef.
Yes, I know. It destroys everything. The reef and the fish. It's hard for the resource to recover.
There are laws on the books banning all forms of illegal fishing. But in a huge country like Indonesia, enforcement is often sorely lacking. Fortunately, some people have decided to break the cycle of destruction. In the small village of Les on Bali, Made Partiana catches aquarium fish. Like the other fishermen in the village, Made used cyanide fishing for many years.
Masyarakat di sini rata-rata pada saat itu.
When I was young, in the early 80s,
tahun 80-an yang saya tahu.
The coral was brightly colored and healthy.
Tahun 86 berkembang.
But in the early 90s, the reef started to die.
200-an lebih untuk nelayan ikan hias.
They turned black and gray. Money-wise, it was a true disaster. The fish had no more coral to shelter in and to feed off of. We'd catch fish for 2 months and then have to wait another 10 months before the stock recovered enough for us to catch any more. All the fishermen were worried. Then the government stepped in and placed a ban on cyanide fishing. None of us had any other way to make a living, but we still had to look after our families. Finally, in 2000, an NGO came along to study the situation and offered us a solution. They were very supportive. They taught us how to fish using nets.
Made uses a long net that he sets out above the reef. He selects and collects the most beautiful specimens of all the fish in the net. Made holds his breath to a depth of between 4 and 10 meters. It's exhausting work, but he prefers this selective, sustainable approach that does not damage the reefs.
What we are told that they already fish for ornamental fish since 80s. Now, in that years, the early years, they're using the net, the mosquito nets. And then their exporter came to us, and they're the one who introduced cyanide. Cyanide was brought to Indonesia by the Philippine fishers, yeah, to collect the high-value fish. So from, say, mid-80s until late, like 90s, almost 2000s, cyanide is being used.
Nice to meet you.
Look at the blue one.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is one dive?
Satu kali nyelam ya?
Yes.
Just one.
When did you start to work?
Since 8. It's 2 o'clock, so now I've been working for 6 hours.
What's the next step now?
Langkah selanjutnya apa, Blimade?
I will sort them out and put them in plastic bags with a little added oxygen. Then I take them to my buyer.
You want to go with him to the middleman, Jen?
Sure.
Boleh ikut ke pengepul?
Iya.
Okay, I'll get it all ready and we'll go.
Nanti kita bisa bersama-sama.
Okay, pakai apa packingnya?
Oke, plastik.
Made has to carry his catch safely to the buyer, who will check the quality of his fish.
Ini udaranya dari ban ya.
Oxygen stored in the inner tube is transferred to plastic bags to keep the fish healthy during transport. Over time, this exceptional fisherman has been able to create a real demand for his high-quality fish caught in a net. Some village fishermen use boats and the most rudimentary of breathing aids. Their gear consists of a small compressor, a bit of tubing, and for a lucky few, a pressure regulator. Thus equipped, fishers can descend to depths of up to 40 meters. Diving is risky under any circumstances, even more so with inadequate equipment and little or no training.
The compressor helps me dive deeper. I get a much better harvest that way. I've been careless and made some serious mistakes. Once, before I knew any better, I swam all the way to the surface without stopping halfway up. I had to be rushed to Denpasar and put in an hyperbaric chamber. A few years ago, some friends and I got the idea of sinking some old tires down to the seafloor as a shelter for the fish. I've only got one site today, but if I set up 2 sites, I could earn $40. I catch different types of fish depending on demand.
The idea of making structures to replace the damaged coral is spreading. With the help of an NGO, the fishermen of Les have begun making concrete structures to replace the coral reefs destroyed by years of cyanide fishing. They have also started a program to reintroduce coral by transplant. Under this flourishing initiative, the coral ecosystem is gradually being reborn. The efforts of these reformed fishermen are being rewarded by a slow buildup of reef fish populations. Today, the whole community of the fishermen of Les has agreed to a complete ban on cyanide fishing in the region. The village is once again living from the fish harvest, but now it's all legal. Village fishermen bring their catch to Mr. Picassi, the local buyer. He also acts as the middleman who negotiates with international exporters. Every fish is inspected and evaluated to guarantee quality. One damaged fin automatically eliminates a fish from the process.
Which one is the most precious one?
The blue angelfish.
Mahal itu ya?
It's around $1.50.
That's the price that the fishermen will
that
have.
market, yeah.
Yes. So what's the price when it goes to the guy in Denpasar?
This is quite a small one. I'll pay the local fisherman $1.50 for it. At Denpasar, I'll be able to sell it for $2.
And then from Denpasar, it will take the plane.
We'll take the plane to
Hong Kong.
and then after Hong Kong, they spread it to the world. US, Canada, Europe, and then we have no idea what price could be.
But the clownfish is the most popular?
Yeah.
Ya. Yang paling banyak dicari
Yeah.
clownfish ya? Yeah, most popular. I think it's about the movie. Yes,
Because of the movie?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So semakin
What
mudah
accounts for the price
ditangkap,
difference
semakin
among
mudah,
various
ya.
species?
Dan juga ini.
The price depends on how rare the type of fish is,
Tersebut kalau misalnya keberadaannya banyak.
and also how difficult they are to catch.
Mudah didapat.
Okay. Bisa melihat
Do
perubahan
you
di
see a
antara
difference
penduduk
since
masih pakai
2001 in the
pakai
types of fish caught and their numbers?
Perbedaannya apa, Pak?
Yes, a huge difference. Now that we've stopped using cyanide, the dead reefs are coming back to life, slowly. The varieties of fish we hadn't seen for a long time are gradually returning. Before, with cyanide fishing, about 5% of the fish would die. Now the mortality rate is down to 2%.
And one typical day, how much money you will earn?
Typically, I earn maybe $7 on a bad day and up to $15 on a good day. It all depends on weather conditions, ocean conditions, especially the height of the waves.
Made earns about 10 cents for a clownfish. The most expensive fish can go for up to $2, but they are few and far between. Fishermen naturally search out the most lucrative species, and yet they are often the most endangered. There are no regulations here, nor any scientific monitoring to assess and track the state of marine populations. Mr. Pakassi's fish will travel to Denpasar, the capital.
How many fish in this load today?
Berapa nih Pak kira-kira ikannya berapa?
On this trip, I have around 2,000. Usually I have 3 times more than that. So in 3 or 4 days, if ocean conditions allow, I'll travel to Denpasar with 6,000 fish.
And how many fish will survive the transport?
The mortality rate is less than 1%. As a rule, if fish die during transport, it is due to human error. And of course, sometimes the bags can burst during the trip.
Middlemen who buy the fish are in a position to turn things around dramatically. By refusing to buy fish caught using cyanide, they will encourage the kind of sustainable fishing methods needed to ensure the future of coral reef ecosystems. But economic interests often outweigh good intentions. In the lucrative market of exporting fish for human consumption, there is still a lot of work to be done.
If you catch fish with cyanide, they're not in a very good condition. You can imagine that if you have to ship them out for so many hours before they reach the market, many of them die. So we've always thought it doesn't even make business sense to use cyanides and lose so many of your catch because it's very expensive to transport them. If you look at the percentage of fish that is exported now from Indonesia, where you could say it's probably coming from cyanides, it's still around 40%. That is much less than years ago, when I was just saying 5 years ago, I think the majority, maybe 80 to 90% came from cyanide fisheries, but it's still a lot.
It's impossible to tell with the naked eye whether these live fish were caught using cyanide, but they are still widely available on the market. Cyanide is a powerful toxic compound that binds to hemoglobin, blocking the transport of oxygen. Though it may be difficult to assess its long-term impact on human health, the risk is real. Restaurants are not regulated, and patrons seldom have any idea of how the fish on their plate was caught. In a protected bunker, a food fish exporter who wishes to remain anonymous because of a series of threats has changed his ways.
This exporter that we are today is actually a very special person because a couple of years ago he contacted WWF and he said, I'm in this business and I'm seeing that there are many practices that are not sustainable and I'm really worried about my business. What can I do? I don't know what to do.
The exporters set up a network of fishermen who are restricted to net fishing. Their catch is destined for big city restaurants. Using cyanide is strictly forbidden on pain of expulsion, and participating fishermen get better prices for their fish. The fish, especially groupers, are handled with great care by a team trained to the highest standards.
This exporter doesn't buy cyanide fish. He doesn't buy fish that is too small. He doesn't buy fish that, has the eggs, that's ready to spawn. So he does everything that he can do. I think he is the best example of, you know, a future where you can have a sustainable business and make money and support all these fishermen in these remote places. However, he's the only one, and he's just by himself. And there's not enough support by the government to work on the other exporters that actually still have very, very unsustainable practices.
The exporter has also designed oxygenated transport boxes so the fish can breathe better during long international trips. He has managed to convince some airline companies to accept these transport boxes equipped with an oxygen cylinder for shipping on cargo planes. This exporter's pioneering initiative doesn't please everyone. He has to operate under high security. Other exporters who use cyanide do not appreciate competition that breaks the mold. But the demand for clean fish is gaining ground, and some restaurants are ready to pay a premium for a product that meets the highest standards. After 8 hours in transit, Made's fish finally reached the second middleman, the exporter with an order book brimming with international orders.
When the fish come in, usually they come in the morning. We open the bags, let them sit in the screening area for 4 or 5 hours. After that, we move it to a quarantine system. We keep them over there for a few days to see if there's any problem, disease or broken fins, those kind of things. So after a few days of quarantines, we move them to our regular systems. So this is the place where we do the packing. Okay, now they are doing oxygen the fish. After that, they will move over there for putting in the box.
I suppose that because it's cargo by plane, it's very expensive. So the quantity of water is important.
Oh, exactly. Because we depends on where they are going and how long the flight going to take. We pack differently. The farther they go, we put more water, more oxygens. Okay, if this is going to Asia, it's probably just a few hours flight, then it's less water. Smaller bags, of course, smaller bags, less water, less oxygens. So different place, different way of packing.
Yeah, because of course, more water, more kilo, more money.
Yeah,
right?
more expensive. Yeah. This is Pakesi. He's my good supplier. And every week he brings fish to us. Okay, so his fish is all net caught, no any cyanide or any medicines. So we really like his fish, and we can see the difference from him and then the other supplier.
Oh, yeah. And is there a way that you can see if a fisherman uses cyanide?
It's very difficult when the fish just come in and to tell the difference between cyanide caught or net caught. So what we need to do is have a really, really good relationship with our supplier, and we know the history of the fish, and we can trust this supplier. And this, of course, needs years to build this trust.
This is Nemo, right?
Yes.
And this is the new star when Disney will release a new film, Dory, which is a blue tang, right?
Right, that's true.
What was the impact of the film Finding Nemo on the business?
Oh, that was huge. It was a big help for the business, because everyone was looking for Nemos, for this clownfish. We think there would be a huge demand for this fish, and we already prepared for it. Hopefully in 2 years they are ready. You know, we have a lot of stock for the customer.
Aquarium fish, like food fish, are sent to the international airport at Denpasar every day. They then begin their long journey to international importers who will ship them to wholesalers around the world, who, in turn, will sell them to retail shops or restaurants.
So everything we see here are fish that are leaving. This is going to Munich, this is to Charles de Gaulle in Paris, and the crates that just went by are for London. Tens of thousands of fish leave every day, going just about everywhere, with different suppliers. It's clear that Bali is one of the major exporters of tropical fish to the world.
The fish that very common is like a clownfish. Now clownfish, the increase of the price from the fishermen to the first buyer, the first middleman, they probably only twice more expensive. And then from the middleman to the exporter, they another double price. Now from the exporter to the importer, estimate probably they 5 times more. Okay. And then from that on could be like 20 to 25 times. But that's for the fish with a not high value fish. Now for the high value fish like angel or blue tang, that could be like 100 times. That is really amazing.
At every stage, the price shoots up. Made, the fisherman from Les, received only 10 cents for his clownfish. The market is expanding exponentially, putting more and more pressure on fish populations. Fish farming could help to meet the skyrocketing demand for both aquarium fish and food fish. Balinese entrepreneur Mr. Chu has an extensive operation. This reproductive center for exotic fish is one of the few to successfully breed some species of fish in tanks.
Ini kita taruh angel di sini.
Angelfish.
Yeah, angelfish.
And you can breed them.
Ya, kami sudah ada 4 jenis sudah bisa sukses.
Yeah, his breeding is like four species now.
This is less damaging for the environment. I'm here every day looking after things.
Mr. Chu has even been able to create his own variety of clownfish. Their distinctive markings make them even more valuable on the market.
How many clownfish did he send around the world in the last year?
Around 1 million.
So what will happen when they're going to release the new Disney film, Dory?
These fish are very difficult to reproduce. So if I succeed, I'll be a millionaire for sure.
Okay, yeah.
I hope we'll be able to meet the demand with farmed fish and leave the rest in the ocean.
He really emphasized that if it happened, I mean, like just took it from the breeding, not from the ocean. You know, it's more healthy, more beautiful.
So good for nature and good for business.
Thank you.
So what do we have here?
Ini ada Napoleon.
Oh, Napoleon.
Yeah.
Okay, bisa.
Napoleon fish numbers have dropped by 50% over the last 30 years because of strong demand on the food fish market. Despite an export ban, Napoleon fish are still on the menu in fine restaurants in China and Hong Kong. Unconcerned by their protected status, your chef will prepare a Napoleon the way you like it for the tidy sum of $250 to $300 a kilo.
When did he start this program with Napoleon?
Kapan Bapak memulai program dengan Napoleon ini?
The government of Indonesia started the program, but abandoned it. I took it over 4 years ago. It's an endangered species. We're trying to get them to reproduce.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a very rare fish.
Yeah.
It's under the CITES, so it cannot be exported to other country.
And if he's successful breeding it,
For science, it's going to be a great victory. Yeah.
Convincing other fishermen to use sustainable techniques is always complicated. We meet with them and explain things, and they'll agree to start fishing with a net. But after a few days, they go back to their old ways. So now what we do is link up with one local fisherman, who then becomes our ambassador to the other fishermen in the area. But it takes time. Educating people, getting them to really understand, is a long process. So far, we've been able to set up teams in several areas, in different parts of Indonesia.
Unfortunately, nothing is black and white. So the problem is not black and white. You cannot say that these small-scale fishermen are criminals, you know. It's, for them, the amount of money that they make is very, very small. You cannot buy this fish for a good price and only pay, I don't know, a few % of that to the fisherman who's doing all the work, and this is all he has. Something has to change in terms of, you know, the value that the fisherman gets. If he gets a little bit more, maybe, you know, he's also more careful with the environment. So it's important to understand who benefits most in this industry. And there's always, I think, a case to make that the fisherman who is responsible should get a fair price.
Over 1 billion people depend directly on fish for survival. It's the most highly sought-after source of protein on the planet, and the global population boom will only increase demand for ever more fish. To meet this ever-growing demand, we need to take a cold, hard look at the ways fish are caught to ensure renewal of the resource. Blast fishing and cyanide fishing, already banned by law, must be subject to heightened monitoring in order to halt the disaster now in progress. It is vital that we rethink our methods of harvesting the sea's bounty. Sustainable fishing practices that conserve the fish and their environment must urgently be established if we have any hope of ensuring our food security for the future. Our planet's remarkable biodiversity is in peril. Species are going extinct faster than at any time in the Earth's history. Rampant exploitation of natural resources is shrinking the habitable areas of the globe. The oceanographic vessel Sedna 4 is sailing around the world to unveil the beauty and fragility of the planet. Sedna 4 and her crew are heading for Sumatra in Indonesia. Sumatra has a rich and varied wildlife, with over 200 species of mammals and nearly 600 different species of birds. Located in Southeast Asia, its tropical forests and peatlands are truly a part of the world's heritage. Yet every year, 2 million hectares of forest are cleared to become vast single-crop farms. That's the equivalent of 6 football fields disappearing every minute. The Indonesian government grants concessions to large corporations who turn these precious forests into plantations. Deforestation is quick and brutal. Animals who try to escape or find refuge in small stands of remaining trees are trapped by fires deliberately set. Though illegal, this murderously destructive practice is widespread. Oil palm plantations are springing up everywhere. The fruit produces palm oil, the most popular vegetable oil in the world. An estimated half of all food on supermarket shelves contains palm oil, to say nothing of cosmetics and biofuels. Ian Singleton is the director of SOCP, the Sumatran Orangutan Conservation Program. Orangutans have become a symbol of the fight against deforestation. They are on the sad list of critically endangered species.
The best estimates that we have today of orangutan population in Sumatra is around the 6,000, 7,000 mark. Maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less. But the important thing is it's going down. Now, in the last sort of 10 years, it's been going down slowly. And what we're looking at now is a potential situation where it's going to start going down rapidly.
New concessions have just been granted to palm oil companies in an area that was formerly protected, threatening the survival of the last wild populations.
The trees are all cleared, everything is scorched, and 99.999% of everything that lived there dies. You can go into these areas and look for a grasshopper or a lizard, and you can't find one. They're not there. Nothing survives this conversion process. Because when they're chopping down these forests in the first instance, they don't sort of get every tree on day one. So you end up with a few trees here and a few trees there. And sometimes you find there's an orangutan mother up there.
In the first phase of deforestation, some animals find refuge in what's left of the forest. Poachers look for infant orangutans, much to the distress of the females who try to protect their young.
So they will chop the tree down and then they will jump on this animal and beat it and club it with machetes and wood and sharpened bamboo sticks and everything, and it'll be killed that way.
Most adult orangutans die or are left seriously injured. The young orphans are captured and transported to large centers where they will be sold in secret as pets.
The wounds sometimes that we see are just horrific. We had one many years ago. She aborted a full-term fetus during the attack, and when we got to her, she was chained to a tree by the neck, and her entire body was swollen up like she'd just done 50 rounds with Mike Tyson. It was horrible. The level of violence you need to do that, just concerted violence, it just amazes me. I find it hard to get it in my head that people can be that vicious.
Occasionally, local forest police are alerted and intervene. Wounded animals will then be picked up by SOCP or other NGOs and taken away for medical treatment. But for most of the other orangutans, it's death. Slow, agonizing, lonely, and forgotten. Through its work and research programs, SOCP is trying to save the last wild populations of orangutans in Sumatra. Here at the quarantine station, most residents are young orangutans confiscated from owners who kept them in captivity in often deplorable conditions. The ultimate aim of SOCP is to release all its charges, young and old, into the wild. But not all the animals will be so lucky.
Losa was shot 62 times with an air rifle. We've managed to take 14 pellets out of him, but he's still got 48 inside. And he's got the problem, his biggest problem, he's got 2 in this eye and 1 in this eye, so he's completely blind. You can see his eyes, look, there's just nothing there at all. And we'll never be able to fix that. So he's going to spend the rest of his life as a captive orangutan, which could be more than, could be 40, 50 years.
All the rescued animals have to spend time in quarantine before going to the socialization cages. This is where these young orangutans will learn how to become wild animals again.
So this is, these are the socialization cages. So this is the first time they've met and been introduced to other orangutans, probably since their mother was killed and they were first captured. So this is where, once they're in here, they have to learn all these orangutan behavioral skills, how to defend their food resources and then you find out who the bullies are and who the subordinate ones are and everything else.
So they all will be released eventually?
Yeah, everybody in here is a release candidate. We're just waiting. This Saturday, we plan to move 6 orangutans from here to Janto to start the release process there, and everybody else is just waiting for their turn. But it's quite a rewarding stage to get to, because these guys have many of them have spent years on their own. Some of them have even spent like 10 years chained to a single tree around the neck with a meter of chain. And to finally get them into a place like this where they can really exercise, get to move around, learn all these new skills, it's a really rewarding part of the process.
Once again, SOCP comes to the rescue. A wounded orangutan has been found on a plantation. The team must get him to the quarantine station as quickly as possible. The medical team have named him Rhea. He's an older male.
Wow. Wow. So this is the one we got yesterday morning, yeah?
Yeah, we just got the information from the forestry department, and then he said with us as he found some big orangutan in the plantation, and the people say the orangutan is just staying in one place and then don't want to moving, and then when try to looking with binocular, he found a lot of wound there. So this is why the forestry department make a decision to take this orangutan going to here.
He's got a big scar
this
here.
This is a lot of wound on his body. On the head, this is very big wound there, and this is very deep. And then we found a big hole on the here, and then on the right hand, he cannot using. And when we try to palpate, the scapula is calm down. So I don't know exactly is this a fracture or just dislocation. So we will make sure with the X-ray.
But it's surprisingly calm, yeah?
Yeah.
The first step is to anesthetize the animal. He'll then be taken to an examining room and X-ray to determine the extent of his injuries. Rhea's body is a mass of wounds and bruises, apparently inflicted by the plantation workers. Again, the level of violence indicates the barbaric treatment that awaits any orangutan who dares set foot on cultivated land. first x-rays confirm that he's been shot. The pellets can be seen all through his body.
So, yeah, this is the head and the skull. You can see there's the 1, 2, 3 pellets up there. 3 bullets here. 1, 2, 3. So I think there's around 18. Yeah, but it's kind of weird because they usually focus on the head. You know, they usually shoot him in the face. But these are obviously not too far away from his eyes. If they'd hit him in the eyes, he'd have been blinded. Yeah.
A thorough examination confirms that Rhea has major internal injuries. He'll need several surgeries and extensive treatment for numerous infections. The medical team will need an ample dose of patience and TLC if they hope to save this wounded fellow.
So after 6 hours under surgery, what's the verdict?
It looks from the x-rays, there's no sign of any sort of bone damage. And so his problem is all these cuts and holes. And especially his right hand, it's completely shot to pieces. The tendons inside the hand is all rotten. You can actually put a finger almost all the way in, just about every direction. And the tendons seem to be already rotten, so you can pull the ends and make the fingers move. So there's a good chance we may have to amputate that, but we'll review that over the next few days.
So if you have to cut his right arm, is there less chance to be released, or?
It depends on him, but he's lived in the forest, wild, and as long as he's sensible, missing a hand probably wouldn't be a major problem. We've already released one big male orangutan with an amputated arm here, and it doesn't bother him at all. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. It depends very much on him now, I think.
Rhea will be under 24-hour observation for the next few days. Veterinarians are especially concerned about some of the internal injuries caused by the violent blows he received. He must be carefully monitored throughout his recovery. Orangutans aren't the only victims of deforestation in Indonesia. Another species is the gibbon, a small tree-dwelling monkey that moves with astonishing agility. His characteristic song has become a hymn to the forest, a long lament with which the gibbon defines his territory. The neighboring island of Borneo is also being stripped bare. More than half of its forests are gone, slashed and burned for the profit of palm oil plantations. And recent land concessions could lead to the disappearance of 90% of the remaining forest on the island. Aurélien Brulé, known as Shane, left his native France at the age of 18 to settle in Indonesia. He founded Cyanide, an organization for the protection of gibbons. Deforestation on Borneo follows the same pattern. In the first stages, poachers target young gibbons to be sold as pets. At his conservation center, Aurélien Brulé tries to give gibbons who've been confiscated from the owners a decent life. They now live in large enclosures in the heart of the forest.
Throughout the Indonesian archipelago, we estimate there are 6,000 gibbons in captivity. Where do they come from? From the forest. The mother is killed and the baby clinging to her belly is captured. And they become living playthings. They're toys. People play with them for a while, then stick them in a cage where they die. It's sad, but this is increasingly common. More and more animals are being held in captivity because so many are caught during habitat destruction. So the logger moonlights as a poacher. They cut down the forest, leaving a little stand of trees where the gibbons are easy to catch. Then they sell them. I'm not giving these animals a second chance. I'm giving them a decent life, which they deserve. They didn't choose captivity. They didn't choose to be caught by poachers. It's our duty as human beings. I'm contributing by having these animals serve as wildlife ambassadors, to give us the means and the tools to protect those who are still in the trees. It's a global problem and very complex.
To protect the last wild gibbon populations, Shani makes regular flights over the great Indonesian forests to track deforestation. He's often able to flush out poachers who go about their business deep in the forest, out of sight.
One of your essential tools is your paraglider.
Yes, it's extremely effective because it takes so little effort. In a single half-hour flight, I can evaluate the situation in a reserve of over 1,000 hectares. It would take days on foot to ensure that there was nothing to worry about. I can also keep an eye on areas that are being cleared. This shows a path that was made in the interior. It's the first step before clear cutting. It's an access to the forest. And there they've started clearing, and you can see what's going on. So that's clear cutting. And they've also set fibers to be able to cut faster. So that forest is on fire.
But there must be a risk of the fires spreading.
A great risk, but that's actually what they want. To set a fire and burn as much as possible. So it's easier to burn the forest into a plantation. These fires don't get out of control. They are deliberately set to spread as far as possible. That's why there are dozens of fires lit here and there, so as much as possible will burn. The longer the dry season, the happier the oil palm industry is, because they can, unfortunately, convert the forest more quickly.
Isn't it against the law?
Absolutely. But this goes on every year in Borneo and Sumatra. The haze will even go beyond the country's border. That's how huge the fires are.
To counteract the massacre, Calawate was able to negotiate the creation of a protected preserve where they could release their gibbons back to nature.
When I created this reserve in Borneo, I did it with the authorities, with the locals. It was an ideal conservation organization. Then came elections. Attitudes and interests changed, and they're now cutting down the forest. What will happen to those animals? This is also a very corrupt country. Indonesia is the 5th most corrupt country in the world, so you have to deal with that. I can't remake Indonesia. My goal is to save gibbons, save the forest, so I do anything I can to achieve that. I've devoted 11 years of my life to a reserve in Borneo, 11 years of work, money, and patrols. Today, as we speak, this forest is being clear-cut. And the orangutans and gibbons who call it home? Sorry.
International pressure from many countries forced the hand of the Indonesian government, which did eventually set up national parks for the conservation of threatened species. But in the absence of competent authorities in the field, poachers operate freely, destroying any conservation efforts. The Teso Nilo National Park was supposed to protect 1,000 square kilometers of forest. Today, around 80% of the park is subject to rampant illegal poaching. On the edges of this park, the WWF has created its Elephant Brigade.
When the park was established, the park was already in a very bad condition at that time. So basically almost like land of nobody, and that's why these encroachers started to come. So the encroachers that were already there at that time become even more rampant because they possibly invite more people. And now, despite the situation, they still are surviving. It's now gone and turned into oil palm mainly. It's tough being elephant here in central Sumatra, but despite the situation, they still are surviving.
In the heart of this supposedly protected park is more evidence of illegal activity.
This is quite amazing.
Yes.
Who did this?
This area, what I heard is done by the local people here, not far from this area, that they still believe that this area is still part of their customary land. People who are in the field are basically, generally, are just poor people that happen to need some money or just to sustain their life.
The threat to the survival of endangered species isn't restricted to the period of deforestation. Mature plantations pose their own dangers to survivors of deforestation. A team from the World Wildlife Fund uses GPS monitors to track the movement of some of the wild elephants. This morning, a herd entered a large oil palm plantation alongside another national park. These migratory animals simply don't have enough protected forest left, since the parks and reserves are under siege by the poachers. The team needs to intervene quickly to try to settle this new conflict between the wild elephants and the plantation owners.
We are just at the limit of Palaraja National Park, and we hear farmers who are attempting to hunt elephants off the plantations.
Challenge here is that to chase the elephant, you need to direct them to a place that is safe. But here, there is almost nowhere they can go.
The oil palm company owners have sent a group of workers to chase the elephants out of the plantation. The battalion, armed with firecrackers, tracks and surrounds the elephants, who have nowhere to go. It's an open-air circus, with the elephants as victims of an organized hunt.
The elephant are trying to go here, but there's somebody there again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
there's so many noise, yeah.
Yeah.
We are living in like the war zone. They keep on trying to survive despite this kind of situations. Almost every one of them got different kind of scars in their body because they've been tortured here and there.
Slowly, run out. Now we are safe.
The elephants were able to get away from the first plantation, but are now being subjected to repeated attacks by workers at the next plantation over.
Look, you know, they're right in the middle of the two plantations and they don't know where to go.
Yeah. Different people chasing from different directions, so they must be really confused.
The plantations have become war zones where owners can do as they please. The elephants simply no longer have enough protected habitat to survive. National parks have been reduced to almost nothing, and the Indonesian government continues to close its eyes to flagrantly illegal activity. Many elephants die every year, poisoned for having breached the borders of plantations. There are only a few hundred Sumatran elephants left in this part of the island. The Indonesian government's inability to protect its parks and reserves leaves conservation groups with few alternatives.
That was the end for me. Now I don't take risks. I buy the land. If I'm permitted to, under Indonesian law, now that I'm a citizen, I will buy up as much as possible. Even if in terms of conservation, I'm not sure it's the best option. But if we want to be as certain as possible that we can save the forest, we have to buy patches of forest, create private conservation zones. With €1,000, we can save 1 hectare. A family of gibbons needs 15 hectares. €15,000 will save a gibbon family forever. That is very concrete. And if we own the forest, we can put protection measures in place without having to seek authorization from any elected official, who may change every 5 years, or lobby authorities for which there is never a guarantee. This is completely different. Someone cuts down a tree on my reserve, it's as if someone came into my house to rob me. I call the local police who do their job. Welcome to Calawate, Sumatra.
From the high point of his reserve, we observe the morning spectacle of a family of wild gibbons. Free on land rich in a variety of species, in the heart of a parcel of forest protected by Calawate.
It's wonderful because looking down, you can see wild animals, which is almost impossible when you walk through the forest.
Yes, it's one of the few places where you can observe wild gibbons at eye level. This is a family of 5. And it's great because the male has light-colored fur and the female is black, so you can see patches of color moving through the forest.
That young one seems pretty lively.
Yes, that's typical of gibbons. He's almost 2, still close to his mother, but he moves around on his own, jumping around to the annoyance of his parents.
What's amazing is to see that the work you do with the cages, with conservation, now allows you to buy sections of forest to protect it.
Yes. Thanks to the animals you hear in the background singing in their cages, I can protect the wild ones. This is why I came to Indonesia, to see wild gibbons and protect them. And we're doing just that here at Calawate Reserve, the forest we bought. I can touch that goal with my fingertips. Saving gibbons means saving trees, which saves all the animals. We have no time to lose, and the best way to proceed is to buy up the forest. In Indonesia, the first big victory, and we have the necessary tools to win it, is to ensure that zones protected under Indonesian law, all the existing national parks, all the existing reserves, are well and truly protected on the ground. We have the tools we need, the laws on our side. National parks and reserves have already been created. But it's clear to see that in Indonesia, the way the law is enforced is not what people are used to in developed countries.
The Calawate Foundation relies entirely on donations from the public. Will Shani's plea reach into our homes, where we consumers of palm oil can make a difference? Bowing to international pressure, a group of growers teamed up to produce certified sustainable palm oil. But it's a fraction of the world's supply, and some NGOs doubt the honesty of certain producers. Yet respect for habitat and biodiversity ought to be a basic condition of earning the right to exploit the forest anywhere on the planet.
The fight against palm oil is crucial, not just for the forest of Indonesia, which unfortunately is already severely affected by palm oil. Anything we can save in Indonesia is only a first step. But if we don't organize a defense, an offense against palm oil, then the industry will start the same process of destruction in Central Africa, in Gabon, especially, which is renowned for its lush forest. The oil palm corporations are already there, and in Latin America. That's why it's vital to have victories here, so that the pattern doesn't repeat so severely in other countries where palm oil exploitation is in its infancy. Just look at what's happened in Malaysia, which was one of the first countries targeted by palm oil and where little forest is left.
Deforestation accounts for 20% of greenhouse gas released into the atmosphere every year, which is a major contributor to global warming. The big day has arrived for some residents of the quarantine station. Today they set out on the long journey to the Janto reintroduction site in Aceh province. They're now ready to be set free in a protected area where the SOCP places survivors of deforestation gathered from all over Sumatra. The fact that the release site is so hard to reach offers some protection to this fragile area, mostly made up of peatland.
Peatlands are deep peat where all the leaves and trees and branches that have fallen into the water have never rotted because there's no oxygen down there. So you end up with this massive accumulation of carbon under the ground, sometimes 6, 10, 20 meters deep, something like that. Now, if you actually look at Indonesia, I think Indonesia has something like 56% of all the world's tropical peatland. The amount of carbon considered to be in these peatlands by the experts was something like 4 to 16 times what's in the atmosphere today. So this is a major issue. If you want to reduce emissions of carbon into the atmosphere, if you can stop destruction of Indonesia's rainforest, and especially its peatlands, you take a huge leap in the direction of your goal. If we fail to protect these, it has major, major consequences for all of us, not just the people here, but everybody on the planet.
After traveling for hours, the orangutans at last reach the Janto Release Center. They'll be re-examined and then enter a final adaptation stage before being released into the forest.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. This is the bit where we actually get to take a breather, eh?
Yeah.
It's always stressful when you've got the orangutans on the road because anything can happen, like bridges breaking down or getting stuck with a broken axle or something. But once you get them here, they're healthy, they're in the cages, you can relax a bit. Orangutans tend to just sort of grasp it. You know, okay, I'm in a box, let's see where I go.
Yeah.
But not all orangutans are so lucky. At the quarantine station, Rhea, the big male, badly beaten by plantation workers, is in trouble. He stopped responding to treatment, and his condition is deteriorating. The medical team needs to perform more surgery if there's any hope of saving his life.
Great day for Ruben, eh?
Yeah, in a minute, Muklis will he'll hang a few bits of fruit on the rope there, try and encourage him to go across, and then the last step is just to open the door.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the orangutan what he does next, yeah? This is what it's all about, yeah? I mean, ever since the orangutans first confiscated and in the medical quarantine and patched up and everything else, it's all about this day where the door is finally opened and they have that chance of a second life in the wild, which could be another 40, 50 years or so.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
At long last, the cage door slides open for Ruben, a young orangutan confiscated from his owners and treated by Ian's team. It's a great day, one everyone's been working towards, a day when freedom triumphs.
Obviously a little bit unsure about what he's doing, taking a look around. A lot of them do that. They the surprise of having the door open is like, ooh, what's going on here? So they don't just immediately run into the trees, but they just consolidate themselves for a few minutes and see what's around, see what's where. and then they make a plan. Okay, look, he's off.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Not very interested in the fruit, more interested in the tree. We're very much hands-off from the very start. When they come out of the cages, they're not looking for a human contact. They're looking at the trees and seeing other orangutans there, and they're going there, and they're staying there. There's no difference between these orangutans right now and those orangutans I followed for 2 years in the swamps. They're up there all the time, feeding very much on the stuff they should be feeding on, and at the end of the day they made these beautiful nests and went to sleep. Yenny sent me a text, we lost the poor guy, so yeah, I didn't make it. But I'm kind of, yeah, disappointed because I was a bit optimistic. I thought when we had a good look at him the other day, it looked like he's still pretty strong. He's been enthusiastic about his food, but I think the injuries that he's got inside are much more than we saw outside.
It's really sad because I thought it was a great, rescue story, but he was eating with good appetite and everything, but...
This is another orangutan dead at the hands of humans, farmers, villagers, just crazy people. When they get an opportunity like that, they just go nuts. Orangutans get killed almost on a daily basis just for nicking a couple of durian fruits or something like that, It's just bizarre. It's completely out of kilter. Sad. But we move on. Try and save the other ones.
I have the privilege to work with these magnificent species, including elephant, tigers, and rhinos, and they are categorized as critically endangered under IUCN criteria. All of these species or subspecies are in that category now. The next step beyond that is extinct in the wild, and we really don't want them to be there.
I can't imagine anyone thinking Calawate is a solution. It's often presented as such. Yes, we're doing amazing work, but we won't save the gibbon. Not the gibbon. We're saving some gibbons. And there's a huge difference. We're not saving the forest. We're saving bits of forest. Fragments, pockets. But if we don't do it, we'll lose everything, so we have to do it. Maybe there'll be a study in 30 years in Borneo and we'll have saved 2% of the forest. Yeah, but it's not all gone. We have to focus on that, because if we don't act now, if nothing is done, we'll lose everything.